In a world marked by the closing of doors, drawn curtains, and lives lived behind walls, both physical and emotional, hospitality becomes a radical act of love. It is not merely the setting of a table or the offering of food and drink. It is the invitation into presence, the willingness to make space in our lives, our homes, and our hearts for the other, especially the stranger, the weary, the outcast, the inconvenient. To open one's home is to open one's soul. In every sacred tradition, the act of welcoming the stranger has been exalted. As a form of divine worship, the Catechism of the Catholic Church reminds us that whoever is generous to the poor lends to the Lord, CCC 24:47. And Jesus himself tells us plainly in Matthew 25:35, I was a stranger and you welcomed me. There is no clearer image of the love that redeems than this. Love that does not count the cost, that does not seek repayment, that opens without reservation, and endures even when it is not returned. This is the posture of holy hospitality, the readiness to see Christ in each guest, to receive the overlooked, to serve not from surplus but from sacrifice. Saint Benedict, father of Western monasticism, insisted that all guests who arrived at the monastery be received as Christ himself. His rule states, "Let all guests who arrive be received like Christ, for he is going to say, I came as a guest and you received me." Rule of Saint Benedict, chapter 53. This is not mere sentimentality. It is the living application of the Incarnation, a realization that God does not dwell only in the temple, but arrives also in the person knocking at your door, frightened, dirty, different, inconvenient. The Christian call to love through hospitality is not a secondary virtue. It is central to the life of faith. It is where orthodoxy becomes orthopraxy. In welcoming others, we enact the gospel. And yet this call is often resisted. In a culture steeped in individualism and guarded privacy, the home has become a fortress, not a haven. Hospitality has become an industry, not a virtue. We outsource compassion to services and prefer curated interactions over messy encounters. But love, real love, is messy. It requires margin. It demands time. It must be prepared to be interrupted. Hospitality is an embodied form of love. It is sacramental in character. Bread and wine offered to a neighbor mirror the Eucharist. A shared meal becomes a kind of communion. A clean bed offered to a traveler is an altar of mercy. The humility of the host echoes Christ washing the feet of his disciples. In Luke 14:12-14, Jesus said to his host, "When you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. Although they cannot repay you, you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." This is love uncalculated. Love that costs. Love that sees no reward in this life. It is a defiant love, one that disrupts the transactional spirit of the world. Hospitality is not only for the materially poor. It is also for the emotionally starved, the relationally isolated, the socially invisible. It is just as generous to make space for someone's sorrow as it is to offer them a plate, to listen without agenda, to provide silence when words would fail. These too are acts of holy welcome. Saint Elizabeth of Hungary, though a princess, devoted her life to the poor and the sick. Her palace became a hospital. Her riches became provision. Her love became presence. She not only fed the hungry, she wept with them. She saw their wounds, and she did not turn away. In every leper, she saw the face of Christ. Her hospitality was not polite, it was sacrificial. And in this, she reminds us that true love rarely looks respectable. There is a psychological power in hospitality. The need to be seen, heard, and welcomed is fundamental to human flourishing. When people are received without judgment, their defenses soften. When someone feels safe, the nervous system relaxes, the heart opens, and healing can begin. Hospitality, then, is not only a physical offering, it is neurological repair. It is a balm to the soul. Sociologically, communities rooted in hospitality tend to thrive. There is less isolation, more mutual aid, and stronger bonds of trust. In these spaces, empathy can grow. Children learn kindness by watching it practiced. Elderly people feel needed. Refugees find dignity. Hospitality creates ecosystems of compassion where the vulnerable are valued. But this is not without cost. Love will ask more than we want to give. It will stretch our schedules, unsettle our comforts, and test our willingness to surrender control. True hospitality is not convenient. It is cruciform. It requires the willingness to be disturbed, to let a crying child interrupt your rest, to host a guest who offers no interesting conversation, to extend a meal to someone who smells of sweat and shame, to be present when it is the last thing you feel like doing. This is where divine love is forged, in the furnace of inconvenience, St. Gianna Beretta-Molla once said. Love and sacrifice are closely linked, like the sun and the light. We cannot love without suffering, and we cannot suffer without love. Hospitality is a form of suffering, sweet, holy suffering that makes space for the other and lets our own preferences die just a little for their sake. And this kind of love cannot be mass-produced. It is made in small homes with chipped plates and tired hands. It is lived out in modest apartments where food is shared even when there's barely enough. It is shown in hospital rooms, shelters, and classrooms. Wherever someone says, "You are welcome here," not just with words, but with presence and patience, that is where divine love is alive. The Holy Family knew the pain of rejection. No room at the inn, no space in the city. They were travelers, immigrants, parents of a newborn child seeking shelter. In their plight, we see the face of every family today who has been turned away. To welcome them now is to welcome Christ himself. The early church understood this deeply. Acts 2, verse 46 tells us that they broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts. Their homes were not large, but their hearts were. Love does not require a perfect table. It only requires an open one. St. John Chrysostom taught, "If you cannot find Christ in the beggar at the church door, you will not find him in the chalice." These words are sharp. They remind us that our rituals mean little if they do not lead to mercy. Our prayer must become practice. Our theology must take on flesh. To embody the love of Christ through hospitality is to proclaim that every person matters, not just the charming, the clean, or the familiar, but the inconvenient, the awkward, the lost. It is to say, there is room at my table and in my life for you. And yet some may ask, how do I love when I am exhausted? How do I give when I am empty? You begin by offering what you have. Even your emptiness can be an offering. A tired smile, a simple meal, a short note, a single prayer. These are the loaves and fish that, when blessed, are multiplied by grace. God does not ask for perfection. He asks for willingness. St. Teresa of Calcutta, who offered hospitality to the dying on the streets of Calcutta, said, "Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love." Her life was a symphony of small welcomes. She bathed the forgotten, she held the dying, she listened to the voiceless. She did not wait for the world to change, she became the change. We live in a time where connection is simulated through screens, where hospitality has become content. But sacred hospitality is not performative. It does not need an audience. It is content to be unseen, because it is done not for approval, but for love. As St. Paul exhorts in Romans 12:13, contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality. This is not a suggestion, it is a commission. To love is to welcome. To welcome is to serve. To serve is to lay down one's life. And so we return to the table. To the worn wooden table where hands are held and hearts are shared, to the silence between bites, to the prayer whispered over bread, to the laughter that rises like incense, to the place where heaven comes to dwell in the form of human connection. This is where the love that never fails is made visible, in the embrace of the unexpected guest, in the quiet room where sorrow is met with warmth, in the basin of water and the towel ready to wash another's feet. Love is a house with open windows and a door that never locks. It is the welcome mat worn by time. It is the extra chair always waiting. It is the light left on just in case. In such spaces, the world is healed. One meal, one smile, one open heart at a time. Because the measure of love is not how we feel, but how much we give. And love, when poured out in hospitality, becomes a living liturgy. Not in cathedrals, but in kitchens. Not from pulpits, but from porches. Not with gold, but with presence. And in this way, the home becomes a sanctuary. The guest becomes a revelation, and the host becomes holy.